Today we're interrupting our usual podcast schedule to pay tribute to Sarah Everard. First of all, we'd like to issue a trigger warning for sexual assault, as this episode will be on how women are treated and the change that is needed. We'd also like to say that we've set up a GoFundMe page for the rights of women, and this is a social enterprise that gives legal advice to women so that they can understand their legal rights and the law.
So leading on from what Katie has said, 97% of young women in the UK have been sexually harassed, according to the UN Women UK survey, which is absolutely horrifying to me that such a high proportion of women have been sexually assaulted and had such a horrific crime done to them.
I totally agree, and I think that's definitely been reflected on Twitter this week, obviously following the case of Sarah Everard, and today they now identified the body as hers. I think a lot of women have come out in solidarity and have shared their experiences, which I think is extremely strong, but at the same time it's awful at the fact that so many women have had to suffer in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's quite sad because I don't know about you, but I wasn't aware of like the number being that high, or the percentage being that high of women who have been sexually harassed. And I think, sadly it's taken an event like what we've heard today and over the past week for it to really sort of be picked up by people, I think.
Yeah, and I think as well it's horrific that certain people, like specifically men, have jumped onto social media and doubted the statistic of 97%, and they've given reasons as to why it might not be true, which again is awful. And I've also seen a lot of men who have said that some women aren't attractive enough to be sexually assaulted, which again is one of the most horrific things. So the fact that although we've seen some great, strong women on social media this week, at the same time, we've seen some awful responses to what's happened that just can't be justified.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's not something to be argued against, because a guy or anyone who has not experienced what these women and women are experiencing cannot comment on that. Men don't go out every day worrying about, who's following them, who's behind them, whether I need to get pepper spray, holding your keys in your hand to make sure, you've got some form of self-defense, and you're consistently having these thoughts running through your minds, which I think every woman I know has had that experience, and it's awful that should be the case.
I think leading on from that, a good tweet that I saw, which I'm going to read out now, that I think has really hit home for many people, is that every woman you know has taken a longer route, has doubled back on herself, has pretended to dawdle by a shop window, has held keys in her hand, has made a fake phone call, has rounded a corner and ran. Every woman you know has walked home scared. And I think that's one of the best tweets that I've seen over the past week.
Yeah, I think you'd be lucky to find a woman who hadn't experienced anything like that before. Even like in subtle forms, it does seem to happen a lot. And yeah, I don't think I know anyone who hasn't had anything happen to them like that.
Exactly. And women are not responsible for the violence against them either. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, what clothes you're wearing, whether you're drunk, whether you're alone, whatever the situation is, it shouldn't happen. And I think that's what is very hard to get across to people, particularly men. I'm not going to lie. I know there's that thing saying it's not all men, and yeah, it's not all men, but it's still men that are doing this to women as well, and it's awful.
One of the best analogies that I've seen is I saw it today actually earlier on, and it was a man recording himself for a TikTok, and he said everybody avoids wasp because although they aren't all out to sting us, we don't know which ones will. And the same applies to men. So why are women criticised for approaching life in this way? Because of course not all men are going to be the cause of sexual harassment or sexual assault, but how are we to know which ones are and which ones will? Because you see so many cases of women who have been sexually harassed by people in their lives who they've known. I saw a case on Twitter of a girl that had been sexually assaulted by somebody she'd known for 5 years and who she deemed to be a close friend of hers. So it just goes to show that sometimes you can't trust anyone.
Yeah, it could be anyone. And yeah, I think like I've seen again so many different tweets, and I think especially like this week, I think well, no, even today, someone I follow shared their experience of, I think they got shouted at outside of Tesco, and like she had to run to her mum's car around the corner, and that happened this afternoon. So you just think like after the events of the week, I just don't really understand it.
It just goes to show that even after all of this awareness has been raised, people are still going out and doing it. Like, how is there going to be a resolution if even after all of this, people still aren't taking it in and they're still acting in ways that can't be justified?
Exactly. I'm just frustrated by it really, because obviously you guys know, and I know people listening won't know, but like we set this up this morning, this podcast, like as everything was happening and unveiling, and when we found out about the horrible circumstances and everything that's going on, it's just so frustrating that it's still happening, that we're raising awareness that it should be at its lowest, but it seems to be at its highest currently. Like, I don't know if you guys have known, I know I could literally have so many women that I know have been, catcalled, and it's just awful. It's so awful that it's to the case. And like you said about being some form of sexual harassment, I know many girls that have had that happen to them, and it's awful.
I feel like the Sarah Everard case, it's just felt like every girl who's heard about it feels like she's a friend, because realistically it could have happened to any of us, because she was speaking to her boyfriend on the phone at the time, she was wearing bright clothing, she was walking on a main road, and the last time she was seen was about 9:30 in the evening, which, although it's dark at that time, obviously it's not the same as like midnight or the early hours of the morning. So I don't know, I felt like I personally have had such a heavy heart because it feels like I know her personally, and I've had quite a difficult time like accepting it. And when the news came through today that the body had been identified as hers, that I literally wanted to break down and cry, because like, I was so hoping that it wasn't her body. Obviously it would have been sad, like whoever it had been, and it's awful to say that you wish it on somebody else, but there was just a part of me that hoped that it wasn't her and it was someone else.
Yeah, definitely. It's awful. Like, me and my mum were having the discussion, because for me personally, there was such a long time that my mum didn't actually let me go out, like walk around the house near where I live, because she was so worried about this situation, this happening to me. And I could never understand from a young age why my brother was able to go out and I wasn't, especially when I started getting older. And it's only this year that I've kind of been able to do my own thing. But now she's worried again. I fully understand why she is, because of this. And it's almost like female oppression, because I'm not allowed to do things or go out and do what I want like my brother is, because of my gender, because of safety. And it's awful. I didn't choose my gender, and no one chooses a gender or anything to happen to them. But yeah, you didn't choose that to be oppressed, really.
Yeah, and I think like I saw a survey that the Tab were doing today in Sheffield, and I think they were asking 3 questions to people who follow the account, sort of about like, are you a woman? Like, do you walk alone at night in Sheffield? Or like, I think the questions were more sort of, do you feel safe walking in the day in Sheffield? And like, it was mad how many people said they didn't. And you know, that's Sheffield. It's not a huge city like London, but it just shows like literally anywhere you walk, whether it's a town or a village or wherever, you know, there's never a guarantee that it's always going to be safe. But I feel like that's just amplified if you are a woman.
Yeah, definitely. I think, oh, sorry, Katie, what were you going to say?
No, sorry, don't worry, you go.
No, fine.
I was just going to say that it doesn't even have to be in the evening or when it's dark. Sometimes if I'm walking somewhere in daylight and you see someone acting a bit shifty, and you feel like you have to be very wary. So it just goes to show that it isn't just at night, it's all of the time, and it is absolutely draining.
It is, like, you can't, like, I've had many discussions with many people about, you know, especially when, you know, when we moved to Sheffield, and like, we're all aware, like, we all look out for each other. Like, if you're on nights out, you look out for people and everything like that. And it's, you know, walking home from uni and stuff, it's scary, especially when it's dark at 4 o'clock. You know, already you can't go out more. And yeah, it's so hard as a woman, and I don't think any man will ever understand that, truthfully. Now they may say, like, argue against that, but I personally don't think they will.
I remember something that stuck with me is that when I first came back to Sheffield for the start of second year, one of my male friends actually reached out to me and warned me about a certain green space in Sheffield that was renowned for rapes. And of course, to hear that after moving to a new area, because of course the student village is in a very different area to where we then move in second year, which is further out, to hear that things like that were happening near where I'd just moved, it just felt so deflating, and of course so scary that I was having to avoid a certain area for the fear of what might happen if I were to go there.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrifying. And you know, this is just looking at Sheffield in particular, but there are some areas where I literally just feel so unsafe. I don't know if you two feel the same, but especially I think more areas within the city centre. But you know, I think, again, I was going to say we're very fortunate that there are a lot of students around, but again, you just don't know who's going to do what. So you might think that, I suppose, people aren't like dangerous or dodgy, but they could actually be the ones who are making things unsafe for people. But yeah, I think it definitely it feels scarier living in a city. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same. But yeah, it is. I think it's just because the city is more populated, isn't it? I think in that respect, it depends where you are in the city. If you're in a place that's densely populated, it's fine. But sometimes when I've been like walking from places, especially when it's dark, yeah, it's terrifying. It's truly terrifying.
And as well, obviously this podcast will be airing on Sunday and we're recording this on Friday evening, but there is a march happening in Sheffield tomorrow night, and it's ironic at the fact that I want to attend that, but the only way I feel safe to do that is by going with my boyfriend. So I'm lucky enough that I do feel comfortable attending that because he'll be with me. But I know if he wasn't able to, I probably wouldn't go on my own, because although we'll be with a large group of people, of course it'll be socially distanced, and then we'll like go on the march, but then getting home, like I wouldn't do that on my own. So it's just ironic at the fact that we're reclaiming our streets, but a lot of women won't be able to attend because they'll have to get there on their own.
Yeah, and it does feel like the only safe way to go to such an event is to go with a male. And I think, yeah, that's definitely part of the issue.
Yeah, definitely. And leading on from that, you know, kind of we want to tell you how you can help women, like if you're a man, and how you can, let me rephrase that. Leading on from that, we want to be able to educate men. So we just want to give a couple of points to any guys who are listening about how you can help women, you know, feel more comfortable, and how you can support, you know, your female peers.
This is actually from an Instagram post, which we're going to link in the podcast description, because this isn't, of course, we know these things as women, but we haven't put this together. So we'll definitely link it in the podcast description. But yeah, if either of you would like to read it out, then go ahead.
So here are a few tips on how you can help women walking alone feel a bit safer. Please don't approach us without permission, especially at night. But as we've also discussed, this can also happen in the day. Please don't walk closely behind us, it's unnerving. At night, have someone ahead of us who's made space or crossed the road can put our minds at ease. And please don't be offended if we seem anxious or cross the road. We don't always know we're safe. And this links again to anyone can do anything. If we do cross each other's paths, a friendly hello, if appropriate, can help ease anxiety. Please take the hint if we seem like we don't want to talk. Please don't beep or catcall. Even if you're far away, it's frightening and uncomfortable to know we're being watched and observed. And please just look out for us. I think that's the most important one.
Definitely.
I think for me personally, the one about if we do cross each other's paths, a friendly hello can help ease anxiety. I feel like for me personally, I know it's different for everyone, but this will probably make me feel a bit uncomfortable, because I know that even if somebody would be approaching you for, say, directions to somewhere or to find something out, until they say that, you really do wonder what their intentions are. I don't know about you two, if you'd feel the same.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. All it takes is just someone to say hi and you do feel better. But like I don't know if you guys have had it before, but when you've been walking in the park and you just feel like you see someone behind you, you're instantly, it's unnerving. It's so frightening.
And your senses are sort of heightened in that moment as well.
Yeah.
And as well, just to add on to that, we've also come across a post, which again we'll link in the podcast description, about what men can do in general, not just when you see a woman walking alone. This can apply to any situation. So if you keep your distance, if you don't stare, keep comments to yourself, keep your friends in line and accountable, and be an active bystander. So help a woman if they appear to be uncomfortable. I think the most important one in this list is to keep your friends in line and accountable. I know so many boys who just sit back and watch their friends be sexist or say things which are so inappropriate, and they don't hold them accountable. So I think if moving forward, if men want to start doing something, it is calling them out on it, really.
I think people who don't do anything are just as bad as those who are making the comments.
Yeah, definitely. It's leading on like from the Black Lives Matter movement. If you sit in silence and don't use your platform, then it's not helping anyone. And just saying something is the biggest thing you can do. Actions speak louder than words, as they say.
Yeah, definitely.
Leading on from what Katie and Hannah have said, obviously you guys have probably seen on social media, there are things that women can do to stay safe. So for example, you can, with your iPhone, you can press your lock button 5 times in a row and your iPhone will kind of emit a loud siren. It counts down from 3 and calls the emergency services and sends a text to your emergency contacts to alert them of the situation and your location. Search emergency SOS in your iPhone setup. So anyone who's got an Android device, if you go into the settings, there is the safety app. And there's also HollyGuard app, which is for all devices. And all you do is simply shake it and it activates the app and it'll automatically send your location, audio/video evidence to your contacts.
Before we move on, I just think it's important to note that we need to remember that it's not just white women that are affected, it's also trans, Black and Indigenous women. And this is all about inclusive activism for all women, not just a set type.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's very easy to assume that things only apply to certain people, and it's very easy to forget that it affects everyone rather than just a certain type of person. So yeah, it's something just to be aware of moving forwards for everyone listening.
Yeah, it's activism for all, not just for the few.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what are your opinions on women sharing their sexual assault stories on social media following the disappearance of Sarah Everard?
I think it's really empowering, and I think then women are extremely strong for sharing such a personal topic.
I totally agree, but at the same time, it's so horrifying to see so many people, especially those who you know personally, to be sharing those stories online. And also, I've seen a few tweets that have said just to like the tweet if you've experienced any sexual harassment or abuse. And to see people liking that, even if they haven't put out a wordy tweet sharing their experience, it's just harrowing to see.
I've actually noticed quite a few people who I follow have come off Twitter this week. I think it's absolutely amazing that people are sharing their stories, because it's creating more awareness for the issue. I have seen a lot of people saying that they've been triggered by them because of past experiences. So I think the thing to take away from it is, if you want to read people's stories and stay on there, then, I guess you've got to just do what you're comfortable with, because there's no, it's not worth seeing or revisiting something that will trigger some bad memories.
I think as well, people sharing their experiences can be really empowering, but women shouldn't feel the need to share the experience to actually make them feel valued, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to feel the need to share it with others to prove that it actually happened to them. You shouldn't have to prove that you have been sexually assaulted and you've gone through these things. And I feel like a lot of women are probably feeling the pressure after seeing everyone else sharing their experiences to do the same.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's awful, really. It's awful that we're all having this discussion and that it is the case. And I guess if you are triggered, you just need to be really conscious of your own self and try have a social media break this past week, I'd say. And if that's worked best for you, that's my advice to anyone who is currently, struggling with the topic area.
If anything, for me personally, I feel like not guilty, but although I've experienced, say, catcalling and wolf whistling, I've never experienced any, like, not that any form of sexual assault is any worse than the others, but some of them that I've seen have been really horrific. And I just feel guilty that it's happening to so many other people. And like I've been able to avoid it. But the only way that I've been able to avoid it is by doing all the things that are said to cause sexual assaults, which is completely wrong. So the fact that I don't go walking late at night on my own in the dark, like, it's because I haven't done that things haven't happened to me, but I should be able to do that without the fear of being assaulted.
Yeah, that's the point, really, isn't it? We shouldn't have to fear going out at night. That I think we shouldn't have to do things. It should be the other way around, that women shouldn't have to change the way they like the clothing, and shouldn't have to make sure. It goes back down to oppression, doesn't it, really? It shouldn't happen to women like that. So yeah, go on, Han.
Oh no, it's fine. I was just going to say the same sort of thing, really. And it's sad that we have to sort of go through what women can do to keep safe. But I think the thing is, sadly, there are people who will do these sorts of things around. So it's just about trying to prevent that as much as possible and keep yourself as safe as you can.
Yeah, definitely.
I think one of the best posts that's been going around, that has the best message behind it and is the most empowering and has the most powerful message, is basically what I'm trying to say, is the quote where it crosses out, where it says protect your daughter, and beneath it says educate your son.
Yeah,
and I'm sure a lot of people have been in agreement that that's been such a powerful message, because I've seen it on so many people's Instagram stories.
Yeah, definitely. Me and my mum, this is a bit leading on from the point, but we're having a conversation about because my mum said, like there's been this massive controversy that, well, no one speaks about it with guys, and guys get harassed too, and obviously this is not the point of the movement. But she said to me, my mum, she was like, I've spoke to your brother about this multiple times, you know, about him having people follow him, but it's also more important for women to understand that, you know, she was getting towards it's more poignant for women and it's happened more towards women.
So I was just going to ask you both, have you, if you don't mind sharing, have you experienced any sexual assault or harassment that you'd like to share?
No, I haven't actually, and I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones who haven't had any experiences. I mean, of course, we're counting things like catcalling and being wolf whistled, but nothing in comparison to what some people have experienced. That's literally nothing. So yeah, I do feel very lucky to be in this position, and which is why it hits home even more so for me. Yeah, it's just hard, isn't it? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and what about you, Han? Have you experienced anything like that?
Well, I mean, again, like what Katie said, I think, you know, there's the cat calling and the wolf whistling, which, I mean, it's just not really, it's not really very nice when you're sort of walking on your own. But I think probably the most scared I've been was, I think it was in, I want to say first semester of year one. And I went on a Tinder date, which I regret. And basically I mean, it was kind of a situation where like you just kept buying drinks, and it was like I wasn't even really asking, and I actually didn't really feel like them, but it wasn't, I don't know, I just felt pressured to drink them basically. And it was kind of like we'd I think we were walking along West Street, which is quite a well-known street in Sheffield. And it was dark outside, you know, it was pitch black late on. And he said like, oh yeah, we're going back to yours, aren't we? And I was a bit like, well, no, like I didn't really want that. And I was kind of just like, this is a bit awkward. And he did not let it go at all. I think he must have said about 5 or 6 times, you know, oh no, come on, why not? And in the end, like he actually kind of grabbed my arm, and I was a bit like he was laughing, but of course, like there's me stood on the street, like pitch black on my own. So in the end, I just literally sort of like walked off, and I was just like, right, see ya. But and then I called my flatmate Ben, because I was a bit like, well, at least it looks good if I'm on the phone talking to someone. But again, like at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. It's only kind of when you reflect and you think back, and like you just think, gosh, that's not good. But I'd say that's probably the most scared I've been. And he was a bit older, I think. I think he was like 23. But yeah, so that wasn't too nice. But yeah.
I've had similar experiences. I won't go into detail just because I wouldn't really like to share it on a public platform, but of people not being able to take no for an answer. And I think that's a very big issue, that you kind of have to raise your voice and be like, no, for them to stop. Like saying no should be good enough in your normal tone. But you've had to say that 6 times for him to eventually then get the message. You shouldn't have to do that.
And I think that links back to the whole thing about, you know, we're not the problem in that situation, because I think a no is quite clearly a no. Yeah. And it's just about, you know, I know they have consent talks at uni and stuff like that, but yeah, I think some people need to get it in their heads that it just does mean no, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of by opening up the conversation about it, and it'll just make more people more aware and more educated that no means no, and you just take that on board, really.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to say thank you to you both for being so open and honest in today's episode. I think, of course, it's not a great circumstance to be in, and we've all been really touched and taken aback by it. And you can probably tell that the tone of this podcast is very different from our usual podcast, and that's been reflected over like what's happened. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being so open about your experiences, because I'm sure the people at home who are listening will also appreciate it as well.
Oh no, not at all. I think, you know, and thank you to you for planning such a great episode and piecing it together. You know, you've included some incredible bits of information there that are very sad, but very sort of educational. So thank you for that.
And especially to Liv as well, who suggested this episode this morning.
Yeah.
It's been a very quick turnaround, but as soon as Liv mentioned it, all three of us knew that we had to do this and we had to play our part in it. And by setting up a GoFundMe page, we've got a target of £100. And if we could get to that £100 target for the charity, then we would just be so grateful. We're going to leave all of the details down in the podcast description. Literally, if you can just spare a couple of pounds, like, we'd appreciate it so much. And even if you can't do that, just by sharing things on social media, like the resources that we'll also be putting down in the podcast description, it'd be so appreciated if you can just raise awareness of those.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
I think Katie will probably do this, but if anyone's been affected by anything that we've said today, please, we'll make sure that there's some information about how you can get helplines in the podcast notes too.
Great.
Thank you both very much for chatting this evening.
Thank you,
guys.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.